Here's a highlight and summary video of our cruise down the Danube River through Gate 1 Travel on their ship called the Monarch Empress. Well, after a day of travel, we flew into Budapest, Hungary, and then our transfer took us straight to the ship. When we first saw the ship, to be honest, we weren't that impressed with it. It looked a little bit like a motel on water, but when we walked in, it was much nicer on the inside than it was the outside. The rooms were pretty pleasant. It was decently spacious for a cruise ship, or a river cruise ship, I should say. It's a little bit bigger than your standard ocean cruise ship, but this is what the best part was, is we did get a room on the third floor that had a full window. So as we're traveling down the river, we can see all the views, hear the water going back and forth with the waves. It was just a really good experience having the window. And then this is what the bathroom looked like. It was really modern and updated and a pretty good size for a cruise ship. These are the hallways. You see they're just long and narrow all the way down because the cruise ship is so long. This was the lobby. It had a little staircase that led to a lounge, and it led downstairs to the dinner area. This is what the main lounge looked like. This is where people would gather. Some nights they'd bring in a couple musicians for small concerts. They would play games, all kinds of activities like that. We really aren't that social, so we stayed in our room a lot. We did meet some people on the cruise ship through dinners and everything, but we didn't participate in a lot of these extra activities they offered. They always had fruit available at the bar. They also had cookies available. You could get anytime. They were box cookies. If they were freshly made cookies, we would be eating those all the time, but that's probably why they use box cookies. And then they also have a tea and coffee service you can get all the time. Another cool part of the river cruise is the top of the ship is totally flat. It has a lot of sitting area that you can sit in to watch as you float down the river. It had some shaded canopies there. If the sun got too bright, you could sit under. And it was pretty hot when we went, but it wasn't unbearable. And the breeze helps a lot. This is actually in Budapest, where the ship was docked in when we first got on. And we stayed there one night. And then the next day, we had the whole day to go explore around Budapest and just kind of enjoy the different areas the city had to offer. Now, each night they did have some kind of activity. Here's an opera they had the first night. And the first night we enjoyed going to the top of the ship so we could kind of see all the boats going by, all the lights. It's a really pretty sight, and hearing the water, it's just really pleasant. So after a long night's sleep, after a hard day of travel, it was day 2. We started the day off by going to the breakfast, and I would have to say they had an amazing breakfast every morning. It was just so many good things, and lots of bacon too. Who doesn't love bacon? So here's the dining room that we had our breakfast in, and it was just really enjoyable. Once we got home, it was really hard not having that giant breakfast every morning. While we were having breakfast one morning, another river cruise came next to us, and they pulled out and turned around. I guess I never thought about these ships could actually turn around like that, but it was a pretty amazing sight to see. It just shows you how long these ships actually are. And our first thing we did in Budapest was a complimentary city tour of the city through Gate 1 Travel.
Chemistry and computer, and also we're going to walk a little bit into
the bus took us to a couple different sites and we stopped at, and we got to get out and explore around with our city guide. Each time you go to a different city, Gate 1 supplies you with a city guide so you can learn some of the history of the city. At this stop, we saw a lot of statues and towers, and then right after we saw all this magnificence, we went to tour a city park. That was pretty cool. Everything here was so pretty, so clean. We just really enjoyed being here, getting to explore. when we learned we were going to Budapest, I didn't really have any expectations because I didn't really study up on the country or anything. But I think sometimes in America, we think certain countries are going to be a certain way and not that spectacular. But as I've gone to Europe more, I just learned how wrong I was. These cities are amazing. They're full of beautiful buildings, and they're all very ornate, unlike in America. A lot of these buildings are centuries old, and they're just beautiful. That we don't make buildings like this in America much, and every town in Europe just has tons and tons of these. We didn't use these because we had our own bus, but they had a lot of tourist bus and a lot of hop-on, hop-off buses. So if you're there on your own, you could easily find your way around. The bus took us through the city. It's just so much to do there. Had a giant Ferris wheel. We did not ride that, but we did see it. We just explored around. We knew we wanted to go see the Parliament building because that's a famous landmark there. And then when we walked down to the Parliament building, we accidentally stumbled upon the shopping area by mistake, and I'm so glad we found it. That was amazing. So these scenes are actually scenes from when we were walking to the Parliament building. They had different trams, and like if you see here, they had little stores under the road. I thought that was pretty cool. But the walk to the Parliament building from where our ship was docked was only about a 20-minute walk. It wasn't that bad, but it was just beautiful. It was a pleasant day. It wasn't too hot. There was a small breeze, and just being in a new country where you got to explore, and it was really safe there. It was really touristy. Felt very safe walking down the streets. No shady areas that we went to. But every single thing you looked at, every time you looked over your shoulder, there was new things to see. Here were sculptures of shoes to honor some of the Holocaust victims. A lot of people were here taking pictures and leaving flowers and leaving shoe polish containers. I'm not sure what that was about. And here we are at the Parliament building. You see how ornate and large it is. And I remember they said it's the third largest Parliament building in the world. But we really wanted to see it at night. But unfortunately, our ship left a little too early, and we did not get to see it lit up. I had been waiting and waiting to get a video of one of these little street trams. They were so narrow and so cute. I finally got one on our way when we were walking back to the ship. So here we are. We went to the touristy spot and had all kinds of souvenir shops. I thought these cans were so cool. I collect toys and things like that, so they really caught my attention. We just peeked in a couple of the shops. A lot of them had these little ceramic flowers that you can make bouquets with. They were really cheap, like maybe $2 or $3 a flower. So a lot of people were buying those. And then this is some of the touristy district we walked through. I'm so glad we stumbled upon this because the main street is just a lot of big buildings, but when you go 2 streets over, you find the tourist part, the fun stuff with all the stores. Here we found a Lego store down in a basement, which I just had to go down there and see what it was about. It was almost like walking down in a castle or a dungeon. Just very European, very cool, but then with modern toys inside. So we just had to peek in there and see what that was all about. Now, these little wooden dolls are all over Europe, and they're on a spring, and they just bounce up and down. And you can find these anywhere from about 9 to 15 euros, and I think I bought about 4 throughout the trip. Here's another little part of the touristy spots you walk through. The more and more I go to Europe, I think this is our 4th time going, all in 1 year, and I just love it. They're all the towns are just so beautiful, and they all have these cute little touristy shops with unique items to make you spend your money, but that's what you're there for. They had candy stores everywhere. Now, I didn't see a lot of people buying the candy, but everybody was in these stores looking and taking pictures because they're pretty amazing to see. We found this little store that had the Welcome to Budapest sign that made the perfect backdrop for us to take a lot of pictures at. That was very genius, whoever came up with that idea, because it drew people into the store to take the picture, and then you might end up buying a couple things while you're there. Well, after a fun time shopping, it was time to get back on the ship, and the ship finally took off. It did float by the Parliament building, but you can see we're in the broad daylight, so we didn't get to see it at night. And here's a little video from our room. It's so pleasant being in the room, just sailing down the river, watching the different scenes as they float by. If you do take a river cruise in Europe, make sure you pay the little bit of extra and get the big giant double window in your room. It's almost like a balcony door window, but there's no balcony on this particular ship. Some of the other ships did have small balconies, but it was fine. You could still open it. Now, the dinner every night was really good. Some nights they had different things that I didn't really care for, but they always had like grilled chicken as a staple every night, so you could get that if you didn't see anything else you wanted. They had cheese every night, and they would bring different cheeses that you could sample, so that was a lot of fun. On day 3, we stopped at Bratislava, Slovakia. Now, we had been here once before on a Christmas market tour, but we didn't get to stay long. So this day we got to stay all day long. So again, we started with that great breakfast, and then we did get another city tour from a local guide. And it is custom that you give your local guide a small tip after the experience. So we usually gave her about €5. That's about what everybody gives. They always have impressive gelato and ice cream stands. I love going to Europe and getting a strawberry gelato. One thing I really love about going to Europe is when they take you down these narrow alleyways that are just full of little tiny restaurants and gift shops. It's just something that just makes you feel like you're in Europe. Now, we saw all kinds of historical places, and then they show you the little restaurants or the famous pastry shops there. This one had a little horseshoe-shaped pastry that was very popular. Here's some more of those spring and wooden dolls I always get. You know, I love toys, so I have to buy toys everywhere we go. Here we are just walking down some more of the streets. You see there's pretty towers and temples everywhere. All of the stops we went to had beautiful churches. Most of the town is always built around a church, and a lot of the stops you did get to go inside the churches and just see how ornate and spectacular they actually were. And then in all these major cities, you can always find a McDonald's. Also, they had a lot of the vendors out on the street before we walked back to the ship, and it was just very reminiscent of when we went to the Christmas market there, except it was like 0 degrees when we went to the Christmas market, and you were so bundled up. So it's kind of nice that we were there in warmer weather to explore it. Here's another one of those toy stores that I went into. Here's some touristy umbrellas on top of an alley walk through just for picture taking. There's so many cool things to see. Now, this little guy, I can't remember his name, but it was something that started with a K the mole, and he's like their Mickey Mouse there. So I did buy a small one of those. They had food in all the windows to try to get you to come in there to buy something, and it was so tempting. They had so many good things. So we went in here, and Ray was thinking about ordering those little crescent or horseshoe-shaped pastries. And a quick shout out to Jane and Lori for buying him one of those pastries during our Christmas market tour last time. And we did stop into a gelato shop, and I got my strawberry gelato I wanted. Now, they do have a famous bridge there in Bratislava with a UFO on the top of it. So we went across the bridge and we did get to film what our ship looks like. So here's a better view of how long it is. So we went to the UFO tower experience so we could get an overlook of the city. And it was about 13 euros a person to go up. And you went up this huge elevator until you got to the lookout point, the observation point. And this is what the view of the city looked like. It was very big. It's a lot bigger than we thought it was, but it's always cool to go to the towers, the touristy towers in different countries or states, and just to get an overlook of everything to see where you actually are. We did this in Paris once at the Eiffel Tower, and I was just mind blown at how large Paris was. When you go there, you just think it's the Eiffel Tower and a couple buildings, but it was humongous. It's a new popular trend now for young people or people in love to put locks on different bridges or fences to show their love is solid. But this was a heart-shaped one there. Now, this is actually the staircase going up to the UFO tower. I don't think this would pass in America. It's pretty dangerous, and you could bop your head on a lot of things there, but it's kind of a cool experience. So after the UFO experience, we just decided to walk around Bratislava a little bit more to experience some more of the little gift shops and just the sights. We're big on taking pictures and videos, so we like to do that instead of just going into the restaurants to eat. We usually don't stop at too many restaurants to eat, actually. We spend most of our time gift shopping, souvenir shopping, and just looking around. Because actually, when you get back on the cruise ship, they feed you well, so you get plenty of food there. This was a cool little shop we went into. It's another one of those candy stores. Like I said, they're just all throughout Europe, and they just draw you in. You want to be in that environment so bad because it's so pretty to look at. But we actually didn't buy anything. I looked around to see if there was anything I want, but I didn't get anything. So we walked back out, found a few more little alleyways to go through, and then I found another little cool toy store. I always go into the toy stores to look around, because I have a toy museum and I collect a lot of toys, and found some more of those little springing wooden dolls. And then their display windows there are amazing. They really do a good job filling it up with cool stuff to draw you in to come into that store, but that's what a display window should do. I think, like I said, I bought 4 of these. I know I got that little angel one, but I'm just a sucker for a toy. What can I say? This is the route back to walking back to the ship. So we explored it one more time and just took it all in, and then we got back on the ship and sailed to the next destination. The trip's going by pretty fast already, but it's such a fun trip. All right, we're already on day 4, and this stop is Vienna, Austria. Now, again, we start with another delicious breakfast. I just had to videotape some of this because this is what I would want to see if I was about to take a cruise. And I was impressed. They always had bacon. Like sometimes when we took ocean cruises, they would only have bacon every other day, but they had it every day. And they had a guy making omelets every day. So we took advantage of this 3 or 4 times and got an omelet with our stack of bacon. Now, some days they had a little notice on your table of what the special of the day was for breakfast, and if you wanted it, they would bring it to your table. That was pretty nice. Well, here we are about to get on another bus tour, and this tour took us throughout Vienna to see a lot of the historical buildings and everything. You learn so much about the town. It doesn't all sink in because there are so many facts, but it's really enjoyable to go through while somebody else is driving you around, and you just get to explore the city. You feel safe. You're not lost. You don't have to worry about directions. You just get to take it all in. I just filmed all this while we were walking around on our city tour. This was another one of the complimentary city tours offered through Gate 1. The tour guide just walked us around the city and showed us different sites. We had seen part of this before when we went to the Christmas markets, but you just see so many new things every time you go to a place. And we got to stay with her for, I think the walking tour was about an hour, hour and a half. And then after that, you did get your free time where you could go explore on your own. And I think this was right at the end of the tour. We did get to go see the beautiful cathedral there. Like I said, every single town has the most beautiful church, and they're all so ornate and gorgeous inside, and you're just in awe every time you step foot in one of these buildings. So many of the little souvenir and gift shops had the most adorable things. Here they had the little Austrian outfits for kids. Look at that. They had hats. So much fun stuff. If I had small kids, I would have lost a lot of money buying stuff for them, but I don't have small kids, so I was able to use my money and buy stuff for myself instead. And we ran across this ice cream shop in one of the squares in Vienna, and it was just so cute. Everything was pink. They had flowers everywhere. It really drew you in, which was smart. But here's a quick video of what it looked like on the inside. Everything was pink. They had flowers all over the walls, and it's really inspired me. Like, you see this picture, when I do get my toy museum building, I think I'm gonna do a pink wall of flowers. Gate 1 also offers optional tours you can take, and we did take one in Vienna where we got to see another palace. They wouldn't let you take video inside. The optional tours are very cheap. They're usually only like $50 to $85, but they're always worth it. You always get to see some really cool things you wouldn't have seen with just what's included with your basic tour. So I think we jumped back on the ship, and it was time to set sail for another great destination. But just the sailing part alone was awesome. We were always taking videos like, look at this, did you see that? Oh, look at that over there. There's a castle, there's this, there's that. So many things to look at. All right, so day 5, we stopped at Durenstein, Austria. But of course, what did we start the day with? A great breakfast. Here we are getting omelets and all the goodies that come with the breakfast every morning. Now, our ship pulled right into a small port for Durenstein, and it was a very small little town, but it's a very cute little town. It was so charming just to walk down this little path to get to the town. Here's the path we were walking on, and the first thing we stumbled upon were vineyards. People were growing grapes because they make a lot of wine there in Austria, and we got really close to it so you could see it. I've never actually seen grapes growing in Europe before. I've seen them before at the Biltmore in North Carolina, but that was it. So across the river, you see another part of the town. It's just so beautiful, so peaceful, and we had such a pretty day. The weather was great. They had the most beautiful tower. It was a cornflower blue and white, and I don't know if the video does it any justice, but it was one of the prettiest ones I had seen in Europe. And it was just kind of like the landmark here of their town. So pretty. Now, I'm sure there was more to this town than we got to see, but we only got to see really one touristy street. And here it is. It had all kinds of souvenir shops, and you almost felt like you were in Italy the way it looked, but it was so nice and so peaceful. And you could just spend hours walking up and down the street there, peeking into the little stores, and everything's so laid back and calm. It's not busy or stressful or anything. So we peeked into this little store. They were selling a lot of apricot wines, and they had some toys, of course, that drew my attention, but their toys were a little pricey at that shop, so I didn't buy anything. That little bear right there was like 33 euros. I was like, too much. So we did find a couple more little shops down the street that had a little more affordable toys and your typical souvenirs, so we went into those. We explored around, found another church and a couple more shops, and then we went into like a little square they had near the church where they had this big mirror, and you could get your picture made with a reflection of the tower behind you, which was kind of a fun idea. Here's a couple more of the shops we went into. I think I bought one of those shields that said Durenstein. That was pretty cool to put in my toy museum. They had a lot of chocolates, and some of the wrappers had the name of the town on them, and then they had a lot of magnets, but we're not really into that as much. Every time we travel, we try to get a Christmas ornament for our travel tree that has the name of the town on it, so that's usually what we look for. When my mom was alive, I would always buy her magnets, and she had a huge collection of them all on her refrigerator from all over where we visited. But I don't know. These little ducks were cool too, but they were expensive. They were like $15 each or 15 euros each. I think that's their collectible item for toys in Europe. They put their logos on everything. This is a little Christmas section they had in the store, and this is actually where I ended up getting a couple of the souvenirs. They have their little wooden soldier looking ornaments where their legs and arms move. And I think I got a couple that were like Mozart, and some that had the name of the town on it. I thought this was hilarious. Has Ray been working out, or is he wearing a touristy apron? Well, here we are, just exploring a little bit more before we have to go back to the ship. And we ran into this sweet lady that was selling some little pastries and her little apricot liqueur. So we bought a couple little bottles of that, and we bought one of her pastries to bring back. But I love these little type of shops. This is what you enjoy seeing when you go to a touristy town instead of all the typical stuff in a souvenir shop. This was our little walkway back to the ship we found. And when we started walking back to the ship, there was another ship parked right next to us. And we actually had to cross through their ship to get to our ship, which that was kind of cool, a different experience. And we did get a little popsicle that was twisted before we got back on the ship. That was the most delicious popsicle ever. So here I am enjoying my popsicle before getting on the other ship to get to our ship. So this one was called the Emerald Sun, I believe. And you see, we walked through their lobby. We're just kind of looking around. And then they have their doors wide open, and they put a little connector bridge so you can go to your ship right on the other side, which was pretty cool if you need to share a port. So then it was time to sail away from Durenstein, and you can see the views were just spectacular. They're breathtaking. The river was just so close to this town, and I just don't think you could have asked for a better picture view. I think we were all sitting on top of the cruise ship at this point, just enjoying the view as it just slowly floated by. Now, as we left, the cruise director told us all to go to the top or look out your windows, and he would do a commentary as we floated down the river, and he would show us different castles and different sights to see, and it was just really pleasant. Now, when we were going downstairs, we kind of ran across a little secret room we didn't know about. It was a little lounge at the very back of the ship. And this is what we used the whole time. They have this water machine where you can get ice and water. It's pretty simple to use. And then they had a coffee, espresso, hot chocolate machine. I got hot chocolate all the time. That was pretty cool. And this is 24 hours a day you can get this. And then they always had your little teas and your cookies you could get if you wanted a cookie. They were constantly putting out cookies. So that was a kind of little nice touch to have. And so I got my hot chocolate, and we sat on the very back of the ship, and then we just got the views of being on the back and seeing what was behind us, what we just left, and nobody else was here. It was just us. And this is cool. When you go to your room, you have these buttons inside, and you see that little star up there. You can push your button if you want to be left alone, and if your star turns red, the housekeeping staff knows not to bother you, which that was awesome. I found that like halfway through the cruise. And then they do give you an itinerary, just like an ocean cruise ship does. They give you an itinerary every day in your room of what you're going to be doing. So here, when we left, we had a Bavarian lunch, and they were passing out giant pretzels, and they decorated the tables, and you got another fantastic lunch. Now, this lunch actually had a roasted pig. I got salad that day because I just can't eat meat if it's staring at me. And then that afternoon, we had an ice cream social on the top deck. We had all kinds. I think it was 6 flavors of ice cream: chocolate, vanilla, strawberry. They had a dark one that looked almost black, but it was some type of grape ice cream, and I tried it, and it was pretty good. And that day, we had a second stop to Milk. And this stop took us to another palace, which was amazing. It was no videos allowed, so you really can't see how beautiful it was on the inside. And then after the tour of the palace, we ended up going through the cathedral, the church, which was gorgeous. And here's some video of the church, which I did not see the sign that said no video allowed. And I am just sitting there taking video and pictures, and some lady came up to me and it's like, "Sir, you can't take pictures in here." I was like, "Oh, I am so sorry." After I had taken like 10 minutes of video and pictures. I am such a rule follower, so it embarrassed me a little bit, but I got over it. This was the outside court with one of the cutouts you could take pictures with. There were so many historical figures, I can't remember all their names. This was cool on the ship. You go through locks. They're like dams, kind of. They box you up in a box. So if the water level is high on one side, the boat will raise up to that level and let you go through. Or if it's low, the boat will go down and let you through. And we got to experience both. This one is where we had to raise up, and you see straight ahead that the water level evens out with the river, and then the boat gets to sail right through when the gate opens up like that. So that was a pretty cool experience to watch, and there were several people on the top deck trying to understand how all this happened, but it's kind of like a bathtub that fills up, that once it reaches the top, you could ride over the rim, or if it lowered, like if there was a door at the bottom, you could go out. But it was a pretty cool experience. And then we had an optional tour of Salzburg, Austria. This was a full day. Look at these views. On our bus stop, we got this view of the lake. And this stop was actually at a small hotel, so we could have a restroom break. But this was a great stop. It had all kinds of desserts and little souvenirs you could buy. I could see why they allow you to use the restroom free there, because they want you to come in and buy stuff. But in Europe, you usually have to pay to use the restroom. It's usually like 50 cents or €1, which is about $1, because I guess they want to pay for their supplies and water bill, but you usually don't get to use the restroom free in Europe. So make sure you always have coins in your pocket. Like I said, this place had a lot of everything. We actually just bought a couple small things because we were jumping right back on the bus and we didn't want to bring ice cream and all the pastries, but we should have. They look so delicious. A lot of the souvenirs had Sissy on it and Mozart. They really used their image a lot to sell chocolates. And I did see they had a Pez dispenser with both of them on it. And I didn't want to buy all that to have to carry it home. So I did look on eBay on the bus. And I bought it on the bus and it was waiting on me when I got home. And look at this chocolate with cats on it. Who wouldn't buy that? So then here's part of our optional tour we went to in Salzburg. The city is beautiful. We had been here once before, but we didn't see any of this the first time we came. They had this bridge that was just covered in locks. People had put locks all over the bridge that really just drew you to it, like a tourist attraction because of all the locks. And then this is what the river looked like right here on the town of Salzburg. So right when you crossed over the bridge, you got to the touristy part of Salzburg. And of course, it had those alleyways that were so cool. It makes you feel like you're in Europe. All the touristy places like restaurants. Here's a famous building. Oh my God, I wish I was better at remembering what everything was. But everybody was taking pictures here. It had something to do with Mozart. I remember that. And then here's the square. Like I said, we were here at the Christmas market, but at the Christmas market, it's just covered in vendors and an ice skating rink. And then here's a beautiful shot of the castle with the little conveyor belt of cars that go up to the castle. I can't remember what they were called, but it was a real funny name. And then they did treat us to lunch, which they said was the oldest restaurant in Europe. And the food was okay, but it was basically fried turkey, which I wasn't a fan of. And then we saw more little vendors throughout the city. It's so tempting to just want to buy something from all of them because they all have such cute little things. And we did buy a couple little things, but you know, when you're on vacation, you can't buy stuff that's too big. We did stumble across this beautiful cemetery right in the heart of the city where a lot of tourists were at, but each grave site was more like a garden and it had beautiful flowers growing out of it. It was amazing. Now on day 6, we went to Regensburg, Germany for the morning part of the day. Now we were lucky to get to go visit this because the river, I think they said, was low, and it was almost so low that the ship wouldn't go visit this town, but we were lucky and got to explore it. Now we met a local tour guide there that started taking us around the city and showing us different parts of it and the history of the city. She showed us where a flood had been, where a lot of the town floods every so many years right there on the river. It was a beautiful city. It had lots of beautiful buildings. Some of the buildings were tall there, and she was saying they were like the skyscrapers back in the day for just family homes that showed your wealth according to how many stories you had on your house. I do remember that fun fact. But it had a lot of stores there, a lot of shops, and for me, that's one of my favorite parts to go into different cities, is getting to explore the stores. What we like to do is follow the tour guide and see what all she has to show us. And as soon as the tour is over, we know where we want to go back, where we want to shop, where we want to visit. So at this point, we were just following the tour guide, taking notes, and kind of planning what we wanted to do afterwards. So we did peek into the cathedral before we left because you should always look at the church in the town you visit because it's one of the most beautiful buildings in the town. Again, they're so ornate and beautiful. It's just a work of art, actually. And they're always working on it to improve it. So we started walking back to the ship down the river walk here, and we just taking in all the beauty and all the buildings. It looked a little bit like Amsterdam at this point. So when we got back on the ship, it was time to go through another lock. And I think this time, when they closed us in the lock, we had to go down instead of up. So we went to the back of the ship to see how it works, and you see once the ships are in, the gate closes and it locks. That's why it's called a lock. And then they will start draining the water out because you see it's high behind the gate, and then you see the water level right there on the side of the brick wall. That's where the water was. So as they start draining it, our ship keeps getting lower and lower and lower and lower. You don't really feel it because it's very gradual, and then after all the water's drained out, they open up the doors and you're at the next part of the river where the water is that level. It's a pretty cool experience to get to say you've been through. So then the doors opened and we got to sail right through to continue our cruise. Now, on day 7, we went back to the buses because the river cruise was over, and we went to Plies, Czech Republic. We actually extended the vacation for 3 days to go to Czech Republic, which was offered through Gate 1. You just had to pay a little bit more to continue your vacation. We had never been to the Czech Republic, so we said, why not? Let's go see what it's about. So it stopped at this small town about halfway on the way to Prague, and it wasn't really a touristy town. It was just a nice town. So we did a city tour there, which lasted about 45 minutes to an hour. And then we had about an hour of free time on our own. So after we explored the city, we actually went to find somewhere to eat because they didn't have touristy shops there. They were just normal stores there. It certainly was a sweet little town. We found a great little place to eat that was kind of like an open restaurant, and we got pizza. The pizza was so good. So we got back on the bus, and then it finally got to our final destination of Prague, Czech Republic. So this is our hotel. The hotel was right in the heart of everything. We were in the perfect location. We really enjoyed where we were. And the hotel was super nice, super modern. It was pretty fancy on the inside. Everything was top notch. Gate 1 is pretty good about finding nice hotels when you're in a big group. The rooms were really nice. They were huge rooms too. Really good beds. They're very comfortable. Had big closets. It had a huge bathroom. We didn't have much of a view there, but that's okay because we didn't really stay in the room a lot of the time. We just slept in there because, like I said, we were in the heart of the city and it was easy to explore. Now, the bathroom was super modern, and I'm all about a modern bathroom. We've had a really good experience with Gate 1 finding us nice hotels in all the trips we've taken with them. So the first night we got there, our local city activity director was Mira, and she walked us throughout the city to show us where the things were, like supermarkets, if you needed to get their money in Prague because they used a different currency there, where you would go to get these things. So that was pretty helpful. And then we did get to explore just a little bit that night to kind of get our bearings to see where everything was. Another good thing about when you go to these different countries is most all of them take credit cards. So you really don't have to get the local currency unless you're buying things from street vendors or trying to leave little tips, things like that. But most of the stores will take American credit cards. My travel friend Lori told me I had to find the toy shop in Prague. So we were walking down one of the streets and I was like, bingo, this must be it. It was really cool. The display windows were full of different puppets. We got to go inside the store and see everything. It was actually a 2-story store, and the puppets were really expensive there. Some of them were like $300 and $400. Some were just a couple $100s. I did not buy one of their nice puppets, but I did buy one of the little wooden ones on the spring that I like that are normally like 10 or 12 euros. I saw this really cute hand-blown glass dancing couple, but it was like 67 euros, so I didn't buy it. I just put it in my video to remember it, and we just had a good time taking pictures at all the shops. They had the cutest, unique items that you just don't see everywhere. So they had a Madame Tussauds wax museum that Ray got in the window and took that little fun picture. And then we stumbled across this. It was the town square, and it was absolutely beautiful. We were there walking around about sunset. Some of the pictures we took, the lighting was just spectacular. It was just really a fun sight to see. And the town square also had one of those mechanical clocks, so we did stop and watch that for a couple minutes. And we saw a little skeleton ring the bell, and different characters would come by the window. It didn't last very long, but we had to see it while we were there, of course. And then we found the shopping mall. The shopping mall was everything. I hadn't been to a mall in years, but we saw this cute little robot delivering people's orders. So we ate there, and she brought me my order at one time. It was really a fun experience. So the next day we were still in Prague. We were actually there for 3 days. And we started off at our hotel with a buffet breakfast. And their breakfast was just as good as the cruise ship. It had so many good things. And my favorite breakfast food is broiled tomatoes with bacon on top. So I got several of those. And they had so much fresh watermelon every day for breakfast. It was so good. And just here's a picture of the room we were in when we had our breakfast. It was beautiful. Now, on the second day, we did take the optional tour that you paid extra to go on, but we had a city guide that took us around the city and told us a lot of the history of the city. The tour started where the bus picked us up and took us to like an observation point where we could look down on the city and see the different views. We saw a replica of the Eiffel Tower over in the woods and just had some really great views. And right here at the top of the mountain was a Starbucks, of course. They're everywhere. But things like this, you just don't see every day. And we were just so glad we were able to participate in this tour and see all the pretty sights. And then after our city tour was over, we went exploring on our own, and we like to pop in and out of souvenir shops and look at the little trinkets. And this one had tons of these little rubber ducks, and they're super cute. And I kind of wanted one, but they're 15 euros each. That's more than 15 American dollars each just for a rubber duck, which I thought was a little bit expensive. I think these would have been really cute for about 5 or 6 euros each. I probably would have bought several at that price, but they were fun to look at. Then we did go back to the toy store. I wanted a really good look in there. Here's some of those expensive puppets I was telling you about earlier. They're like $300 and $400 for these. And they had smaller ones for like $100. And then, of course, the store had some cheaper items you could pick up as well. But their really nice items were really expensive. But they were right in that main touristy road in Prague. So, of course, they have to pay rent too. And then as we walked down the alleyway of shops, we found another toy store, and this one was all rubber ducks. Every single thing in the store was a rubber duck. And again, they were like 15 euros each, but it was really impressive just being in the room. It was so colorful and neat and clean. I really wanted one of those large rubber ducks on the top with the crown, but it's hard getting that kind of stuff back. Now, this is the main bridge. I think it was the Charles Bridge or the St. Charles Bridge. I can't remember, but it was a pedestrian bridge, and it had the most amazing views of the river and the beautiful buildings and other bridges. We had stayed on this bridge probably an hour just enjoying it, and it had statues everywhere. It was just so pretty. We went into some more souvenir shops. I love these little cottages. I actually bought one of these back in Bratislava, and it was about 25 euros for a small one, but I did get a little keepsake there. And to backtrack just a little bit, this was a little video taken from our optional tour earlier in the day where they showed us this secret garden. It was beautiful, and all these formations were not natural. They were made somehow of cement and concrete, but it's really impressive to look at, and it blocked out all the other people and houses around this place, making it a secret garden. And it was really fun when you walked around. They had different peacocks just running around and looking at people. They wouldn't get too close to you, but they had the colorful ones, and then they had the white ones, like the albino ones, I guess. Our city tour also took us to the Linden Wall, which was just a giant wall of graffiti you could take pictures at. But just the walking tour, we took several pictures just because it was so beautiful to look at. And then, of course, we found some more little shopping areas there as well. But we're just a sucker for these little shops. This one is actually, when we left the group, we found a whole like flea market, farmer's market type place. And it was just very colorful and pretty. There were so many bumblebees everywhere. It really surprised me. The stores had bumblebees in it everywhere. Now, this was a great place for me. We stumbled across like one of the best toy stores I had ever been in my life. It had giant statues you could take pictures of with superheroes. It had a huge merry-go-round in the middle of the store. They had all kinds of toys there to buy, of course, and they were actually the same toys we have here in America, but they were a little more expensive. They might have been imported in or something, but the prices were a little bit more. But so many kids and families were here just having a great time, and it's kind of my dream too. You know, I want a toy museum one day, and I don't think I could ever have anything this fancy because this is a multi-million-dollar building, but it sure was an inspiring sight to see. And this huge teddy bear over here was made completely out of Lego. So if you ever do go to Prague, Czech Republic, make sure you go look up this toy store. It's called Himley's, and you won't regret stopping in. It had so much to do. On the top floor, they even had an arcade for kids to play games, and then they had a tea and smoothie bar where you can get different kind of treats. It was just so much to do and so many props to take pictures with. I had a giant My Little Pony that I had to get a picture made with my smoothie I got. And our last stop we did was back to the mall. They had a huge food court. And it was just fun watching the little robots at the different restaurants deliver food. They had a couple that we saw. And let me think. They had a Burger King, a KFC, a McDonald's, a Pizza Hut, some cafeteria type places to eat. They had an all-you-can-eat like Chinese buffet, but it had a conveyor belt that brought the food around to the different tables, and you paid one price and you just took off what you wanted from the conveyor belt. I had seen those in movies before, but I had never really seen one in person, and it's pretty cool to see. Here's a video of that conveyor belt I was telling you about a little bit earlier. And being a big kid at heart, I did have to get these two bubble tea plush animals. We squished them down and got them in our suitcase. So here's just a couple of last minute pictures of us having a good time. This trip was so much fun, and I definitely suggest that you look into these trips and just enjoy your life. And don't just tell yourself you're going to do it one day. Go online, find that trip you want to take, and book it. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Have a great week.